I didn't ask yet, because I was afraid of your answer. Those were the exact words echoing in Michael's mind each night, long before he even understood what his wife Aurora meant. They would return to him later, like a prophecy he never learned to interpret until everything collapsed around him. But back then, months earlier, all he knew was that something in their marriage had shifted so sharply it felt like waking up next to a stranger wearing his wife's skin. The first sign had been the way Aurora's body stiffened whenever he reached for her in bed. Not anger. Not irritation. Something colder, more fragile, like a person holding their breath underwater. She would gently move his hand away, never harsh, never loud, and murmur the same line, "Not now, please." What unsettled him wasn't the rejection. It was the fear in her voice. As if intimacy might break her, or expose something she desperately wanted hidden. He first noticed it around the same time she started waking earlier than usual. Gone before sunrise. Back home late. Not because of work, her office had stable hours, but because traffic was bad, a colleague needed help, there was a deadline, and a dozen other excuses said too quickly with eyes that refused to meet his. But the moment that truly cracked the shell of suspicion was the night he found her in the living room at 2 a.m., staring at her phone as if afraid of what she might see. Michael had walked in, rubbing sleep from his eyes, and asked gently, "Aurora, what's wrong?" She had flinched like she'd been caught stealing. The phone screen slipped from her hand before she grabbed it again, locking it instantly. "Nothing," she whispered. "Just thinking." But he'd seen it in that half-second flash before the screen went dark. A pregnancy ovulation tracker. Open. Active. And she had been looking at it for a long time, judging by how drained her eyes were, as though she were forcing her mind through a maze of decisions. It made no sense. She wasn't allowing closeness. Why would she be checking dates for conception? That question dug into him for weeks. The silence between them grew heavier. Meals eaten in polite hums. Occasional smiles that didn't reach her eyes. She avoided conversations deeper than a puddle. She avoided touch that lasted longer than a second. And whenever he asked if she was stressed, she simply said, "I'm fine," in a tone that made it clear she wasn't. What made it worse was the contradiction. Even in her distance, she watched him with a kind of sorrow, almost guilt, when she thought he wasn't looking. He caught her wiping tears once when she believed he was asleep. Every sign pointed to something breaking inside her, silently, privately. And yet he still believed, foolishly, that whatever it was, they'd face it together. He had no idea that this was the beginning of a truth so twisted and layered that the night she would one day whisper that haunting line, "I didn't ask yet, because I was afraid of your answer," he would finally understand that everything had been building toward a single secret she could no longer control. Don't forget to hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more stories. Tap the notification bell so you never miss a twist. New tales drop every day. Michael noticed the change the same way a person notices a sudden shift in temperature. Not immediately, but all at once. It happened on a Thursday morning, 3 months after their cold bed silence began. He had woken expecting the usual distance. Her quick exit from the bedroom, her polite, empty smile. Instead, he found her in the kitchen humming softly, cooking his favorite yam and egg sauce as though trying to resurrect a version of herself she'd buried. She looked up at him with an expression he hadn't seen in months. Warmth, faint and trembling like a candle flame struggling in wind. "Good morning," she said, voice tight, as if she were practicing the sound of normal. It wasn't the breakfast that startled him, it was the way she kept studying his face, memorizing details she'd been avoiding for months. The shape of his eyes. The curve of his jaw. The small scar near his temple. She touched him twice that morning, once to lean in a little too close when placing his plate down, and then resting her palm briefly on his back when he stood to leave for work. The touch was hesitant but intentional. It felt like watching a person who had been drowning suddenly reach for the surface again. That night, she wore the perfume he had once bought her for their 2-year anniversary, a scent she had stopped using since her withdrawal began. She cooked, she laughed at his jokes, she asked about his day as though desperately trying to rebuild a bridge she had burned without explanation. But the most startling moment came just after 3 a.m. He felt the weight of her hand on his chest, followed by her whispering, "Michael, I've been thinking." He opened his eyes to find hers wide, bright, and wet with unshed tears. A storm of emotion swirled behind them. Fear, hope, determination, and something else he couldn't yet decipher. "I think," she swallowed hard, "I think I'm ready for us to have a baby." The words didn't shock him, it was the way she said them, with the urgency of someone running out of time. Her fingers trembled against his chest, betraying the calm she was trying to maintain. He studied her breath, uneven. Her pupils dilated. Her voice cracked when she repeated the sentence a second time, softer, almost pleading, as if the idea wasn't a desire but a necessity. As though her future depended on his answer. Michael had always wanted children. But this sudden shift, this emotional whiplash left an ache in his chest. "Adeora," he whispered, "what's going on?" For a moment she looked like she might finally tell him everything. Her mouth opened, her hand tightening over his shirt. But then something flickered across her face, fear deep and ancient, and she pulled back. "Nothing," she lied, shaking her head. "I just want us to move forward." But the lie came with a crack in her voice sharp enough to cut through the dark. Michael lay awake long after she fell asleep. He didn't know it yet, but her sudden tenderness wasn't about healing their marriage. It was about preparing for a storm she could no longer outrun. Don't forget to hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories. Tap the notification bell so you never miss a twist. New tales drop every day. The shift in Adeora's behavior might have comforted another man, but for Michael, it only sharpened the unease already pulsing beneath his ribs. He'd spent months being pushed away and now suddenly he was being pulled close, too close. The emotional seesaw made everything inside him feel off balance, like he was living with two different women switching places in the dark. The confirmation that something was very wrong came on a Sunday afternoon. Adeora had stepped into the bathroom to shower, leaving her handbag on the couch, something she never did anymore. Her bag had become an extension of her body these past months, always zipped, always clutched, always guarded. So when he saw it lying there unattended, open just slightly at the top, curiosity mixed with dread tugged at him. He didn't plan to search it. He only bent down to move it aside so he could sit. But when he lifted it, something thin and plastic slipped out and fell to the floor with a soft tick. A hospital wristband. He picked it up slowly, his heartbeat drumming louder with each second. At first glance he expected to see Adeora Okafor, maybe a date of a routine checkup. But the name on the band froze him in place, chilling him to the bone. Nathan Ibe, male, age 33. Not her name. Not her gender. Not her age. Not even close. A man. And she had kept his wristband in her handbag. Michael blinked, as if the letters might rearrange themselves into something reasonable. They didn't. Before he could process the shock, Adeora's voice drifted toward him. "Michael? Can you help me with my towel?" She stepped out of the bathroom, saw the wristband in his hand and froze mid-sentence. The color drained from her face so quickly it was like watching a curtain fall. "What is this?" he asked quietly. Her lips parted, but no words came. Only panic. She rushed toward him, snatched the band from his hand and shoved it into the bag with shaking fingers. "Why were you going through my things?" she snapped, a tone she rarely used. "I didn't." "It fell out," he replied, voice calm but firm. "Adeora, who is Nathan?" She shut the bag, clutching it to her chest like a shield. "No one. It's not what you think." "Then explain it." She turned away, gripping the chair as though it was the only thing preventing her from collapsing. Her breath hitched, not anger, not embarrassment, fear. That same fear he'd seen in her eyes whenever intimacy came up. The same fear that lived in her silence. "I don't want to talk about it," she said. Michael stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Are you in trouble?" She shook her head too fast. "No. Please, Michael, just let it go." But he couldn't. The woman he married didn't lie. The woman he married didn't hide. And certainly not about something this big. He didn't know who Nathan was, but the look on his wife's face told him one thing with painful clarity. This man, this stranger, was connected to the reason she had withdrawn from him. And to the reason she suddenly wanted a baby. And the truth, whether she liked it or not, was already unraveling. In the days that followed, the air in the house changed. Not dramatically, not loudly, just subtly enough to sting. Adeora became hyper-aware of her belongings, especially her handbag. She carried it from room to room, even taking it with her to the bathroom. She locked the bedroom door when she dressed. She jumped whenever her phone buzzed. Michael didn't confront her again, not directly. He knew that pushing too hard would only make her retreat deeper into whatever tunnel she was crawling through. Instead he watched. He listened. He studied the patterns forming in her silence. And that's how he caught the moment everything cracked open. It was late evening. The rain outside was soft, almost whispering against the windows. Adeora was sitting in the hallway, her phone pressed to her ear, her body curled in on itself. She probably thought he was asleep, but he'd been lying awake again, insomnia slowly becoming his unwanted companion. He stepped quietly to the edge of the corridor, just close enough to hear her voice, trembling, urgent, breaking. "No, you can't call me again," she whispered harshly. "I told you we're done. Please, you have to stop this. I'm trying to fix things." Pause. A ragged inhale. "No, I can't come tomorrow. I can't. My husband." She stopped abruptly, as if saying the word husband had opened a fresh wound. Then she lowered her voice to a sharp whisper. "Don't talk like that. Please. I said I'm done. I've done everything I can." Her fingers shook so violently the phone nearly slipped from her grasp. Michael felt a cold ripple travel down his spine. He had never seen her like this. Not during stressful work weeks, not during family arguments, not even during their worst fight as a couple. This wasn't fear of guilt. It was fear of consequence. She ended the call abruptly when she heard a floorboard creak beneath his foot. She turned, fast, eyes wide, breath caught in her throat. "Michael." Her voice was thin like stretched fabric about to tear. He stepped into the dim light of the corridor. "Who were you talking to?" "No one," she snapped too quickly. Her phone dropped to her side, her knuckles white around it. "Just work." "At 11 p.m.? Whispering? Begging someone not to call you?" She swallowed, unable to mask the panic anymore. Her eyes darted, not left or right, but inward, as if searching her mind for a lie strong enough to hold the dam from bursting. "I can't do this tonight," she whispered. "Please just let me breathe." She moved past him, clutching her phone like a lifeline. But before she could escape into the bedroom, her voice cracked. "I'm trying, Michael. I'm trying to fix everything." Fix what? What had broken? What was she hiding that made her voice sound like it was made of shattered glass? He watched her disappear behind the bedroom door, watched the lock turn with a soft click. And for the first time, a chilling thought entered his mind. What if this wasn't about another man romantically? What if it was something darker, something she couldn't escape no matter how she tried? Michael stood alone in the hallway, the echo of her whispered plea ringing in his ears. "I'm trying to fix everything." Fix what? Whatever it wasn't small. And it wasn't over. Don't forget to hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories. Tap the notification bell so you never miss a twist. New tales drop every day. The tension in the house didn't explode. It seeped, slow and suffocating like water leaking through cracks in the ceiling. Michael tried to focus on work, on errands, on anything other than the growing distance between them, but everything he did circled back to the same pulsating worry. Edaora was unraveling. Quietly. Secretly. Desperately. The breaking point arrived one night when he found the bedroom door locked from inside. At first he thought she was simply changing. But after several minutes of silence he heard it, faint, muffled, fragile. Crying. Not the sharp, sudden type that escapes during an argument. No, this was the deep kind. The kind that came from the center of a person's soul. The kind she tried to bury but couldn't. "Edaora?" he called gently, pressing his ear to the door. No answer. But the crying continued, softer now, like she was trying to swallow the sound. He knocked again. "Edaora, please open the door." Still nothing. He was about to step back when he heard her whisper, so low he almost missed it. "I can't lose everything. Not again, not again." The phrase hit him in the chest like a hammer. Not again? There were pieces of her past he knew, losing her parents, the failed engagement she never fully discussed, the financial struggles before they married. But this sounded older, deeper, a wound that never healed. "Edaora," he murmured, placing his palm on the wood separating them, "whatever it is, I'm here." For a moment he thought she might open the door. He heard movement, a shaky breath, then a quiet sob. But instead of unlocking it, she whispered, "Please, Michael, please just go downstairs." It wasn't rejection. It was a plea. Almost like she believed she was protecting him from something. He stepped back, torn, and walked toward the stairs. Halfway down, curiosity pulled him into a pause. The house was dark except for the faint bathroom light under the door. And suddenly the crying fell silent. Too silent. He waited, strained his ears. Nothing. Unsure whether it was worry or instinct driving him, he quietly returned to the bedroom door and tried the handle again. Unlocked. He pushed the door open slowly. The room was dim, but the ensuite bathroom glowed faintly, the door narrowly ajar. Through it, he saw her kneeling on the tiled floor, clutching the edge of the sink with one hand while the other held a small object. Her shoulders trembled violently. Her breathing was broken, as though she'd been running. Michael stepped inside, but she didn't hear him. "I have to fix this," she whispered to herself, voice cracking. "I can't let him die. I can't lose everything again. The phrase tore through him. Let him die? Oh, Nathan? Another man? Someone else entirely? He took another step and her head jerked up. She scrambled to hide the object behind her back, fast, almost frantic. What are you doing here? She breathed. Her eyes were red, swollen, drenched in guilt and fear. Eudora, please talk to me. She shook her head violently. I said I'm fine. No, you're not. His voice was gentle. Hers trembled. For a moment he thought she would finally break, finally tell him the truth. Her lips parted. Her eyes softened with unbearable sorrow. Then she whispered, I'm sorry, scrambled to her feet, brushed past him and fled the room. He stood alone in the bathroom doorway, staring at the sink where a single drop of her tears still clung to the porcelain. Something was breaking inside her. Something she couldn't contain much longer. And whatever the secret was, Michael realized one chilling truth. It wasn't just hurting their marriage. It was drowning her. Don't forget to hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories. Tap the notification bell so you never miss a twist. New tales drop every day. The next morning the house was unbearably quiet. Too quiet. The kind where every soft sound felt like it was echoing in a cathedral. Eudora moved through the rooms like a ghost, polite, distant, composed, as though the previous night's breakdown had never happened. But her eyes remained swollen, her hands trembled every time she touched something, and she avoided Michael with surgical precision. He let her be for the moment. Not because he didn't care, but because she looked like a person standing on a ledge, one wrong word away from falling. But the moment that shattered his patience came that afternoon. Michael had been searching for a clean towel in the wardrobe. Eudora's handbag, previously glued to her side, wasn't nearby. She had taken it to the market. For once, she was gone long enough for him to breathe without watching her unravel. He reached for a towel, but instead his fingers brushed against something tucked behind a stack of folded clothes. A small rectangular box. Familiar. Too familiar. Birth control pills. He stared at the box for a full 5 seconds before picking it up. Not because the pills shocked him, lots of couples used contraception, but because the box was coated in dust. The expiration date read 4 months ago. 4 months. The exact amount of time Eudora had refused intimacy. He opened the box. Only a few pills remained, scattered loosely inside. They hadn't been touched in months. She hadn't been using them. Not while she was avoiding him. Not during her sudden desire for a baby. And the timeline fit too perfectly to ignore. He sat down slowly on the edge of the bed, the box heavy in his hand. If she hadn't been using birth control, then why had she refused him so completely? Why had she suddenly wanted a baby? The questions twisted into something sharp inside him. He wasn't jealous, he was terrified. Terrified that something catastrophic was happening behind the scenes, something she believed she must face alone. Terrified that he might already be losing the woman he married without even knowing what battle she was fighting. As he stared at the expired pills, soft footsteps approached the hallway. Eudora returned home earlier than expected. The door slammed, groceries rustled, keys dropped onto the table. Michael didn't hide the pills. He was tired of dancing around the truth. When she walked into the bedroom and saw the box in his hands, the blood drained from her face instantly. Eudora, he said softly, why were these hidden? She opened her mouth to speak but said nothing. Her eyes flicked from the pills to his face, then back to the pills again, wide, startled, cornered. I can explain, she whispered. Please do. She sat down slowly, her legs trembling so visibly he could see it from the other side of the room. She bowed her head, fingers twisting into themselves. I didn't use them, she confessed, voice no louder than breath. I know, he replied gently. Why? She closed her eyes. A tear slipped out and fell onto her palm. Because I wasn't avoiding getting pregnant, she whispered. I was avoiding you. The words cracked something inside Michael. But why? She cried harder now, shoulders shaking silently. When she raised her face to him, her eyes carried the weight of someone drowning. Because I didn't want to get pregnant until I was sure. I wasn't bringing a child into a lie. The sentence hit him like a physical blow. Before he could speak, a sharp knock echoed at the front door. Sudden, urgent, too perfectly timed. Both of them froze. The knock came again. Eudora's face drained of all color. Please, she whispered, horrified, don't open that door. And just like that, the secret she had been trying to outrun had arrived on their doorstep. The knocking grew louder, sharper, each strike vibrating through the house like a warning drumbeat. Eudora stood rooted to the floor, eyes wide, breath trapped somewhere between her chest and throat. Her entire body trembled, not subtly, not softly, but violently, like someone bracing for an impact they had feared for months. Michael wasn't sure whether to go to the door or go to her. "Who is it?" he asked quietly. She shook her head, panicked. "Please, Michael, don't open it. I'm begging you." Another knock. Harder. Then a voice, distant, muffled, struggling for breath. "Eudora, please." A man. A stranger. Michael felt something cold unfurl in his stomach. He took a step toward the living room, but she grabbed his wrist with trembling fingers. "Don't. Please don't." "Then tell me who he is." Her lips parted, but no words came. Only fear. It. Paralyzing. The knock came again, weaker this time, like the person outside was losing strength. "Eudora, please. I need help." That voice, strained, hoarse, didn't sound like a man demanding entry. It sounded like someone begging for life. Michael gently pried her hand off his wrist. "I'm opening the door." "No," she cried louder than he'd heard her in months. She lunged forward to stop him, but her legs buckled under her own panic. She stumbled, catching herself on the wall, breath shaking uncontrollably. He hesitated, torn. But then he heard the stranger cough, a deep, painful, wet cough that didn't sound remotely theatrical. Something primal inside Michael overrode the confusion. He reached the door and pulled it open. Standing there, barely, was a man who looked like he had wrestled death and lost the first round. Tall but frail. Skin sunken against sharp cheekbones. Lips cracked. Sweat clinging to his brow despite the cool weather. His clothes hung off him like they belonged to a healthier version of himself. One hand gripped the doorframe for balance. The other held his abdomen where a bandage peeked out beneath his shirt. His eyes lifted, tired, bloodshot, and locked onto Michael's face. "Please," he whispered. She said she was done. "But I can't afford the treatment anymore. I thought, if I came myself, she'd listen." Michael stared. "Who are you?" Before the man could answer, Eudora appeared behind Michael, voice breaking into a desperate cry. "Nathan, go home. You shouldn't be here." Michael froze. Nathan. The name on the hospital wristband. The name she refused to explain. The name she whispered fearfully on late-night calls. The man coughed again, doubling over. "I'm sorry, Ada. I just didn't know what else to do." Ada. The nickname only someone from her past would use with such familiarity. Michael turned slowly toward his wife. She looked like a woman standing before a funeral, face pale, hands shaking violently. "Michael," she pleaded, voice strained and cracking, "please, don't misunderstand. It's not what you think." Nathan swayed on unsteady legs. Michael instinctively reached forward to keep him from falling. The man's skin burned with fever. Eudora covered her mouth with both hands, either to stifle a sob or to prevent herself from screaming. "Let him inside," Michael said, his voice low but steady. Eudora shook her head fiercely. "No, you don't understand. This will ruin everything. Please, Michael. Please." He glanced at Nathan again, weak, sick, barely conscious, and a realization struck him like lightning. This wasn't romance. This wasn't infidelity. This was survival. For one of them. For both of them. The storm Eudora had been trying to outrun had finally stepped into their home. Michael guided Nathan carefully into the living room, one arm supporting the man's weight as he staggered forward. Nathan's breathing was shallow, ragged, each inhalation sounding like sandpaper dragged across wounded lungs. Sweat clung to his forehead. His eyes fluttered in disorientation. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, or eaten in longer. Eudora stood at the doorway, trembling so violently it seemed her bones might rattle out of place. Her eyes never left Nathan, but it wasn't affection in them. It was terror. Pure. Consuming. Michael eased Nathan onto the couch. The moment Nathan's body met the cushions, he exhaled a groan of exhaustion. "Thank you," he mumbled weakly. Michael crouched down. "You're burning up. How long have you been like this?" Nathan tried to answer, but a cough tore through him, shaking his entire frame. He winced, clutched his abdomen tighter, and that's when Michael saw the stain beneath the bandage, faint but unmistakable, the shadow of dried blood. Michael's heart kicked hard against his ribs. "Eudora, get water. And towels." Her voice broke. "Michael, please? Now." She flinched at the sharpness in his tone. Something inside her fractured, but she turned and walked quickly to the kitchen. As soon as she left, Nathan lifted his gaze to Michael. There was something pleading there, not for sympathy but for understanding. "I'm not here to destroy your marriage," Nathan whispered. Michael swallowed the knot rising in his throat. Then why are you here? What are you to her? Nathan closed his eyes, like gathering the last ounce of strength he had left. I'm the reason she got into that deal, he said softly. The reason she signed it. The reason she chose him. Michael's chest chilled. Him? She didn't do it for money, Nathan continued, voice trembling. She didn't do it for herself. She did it because of me. A wave of questions slammed into Michael, but Adaora returned before he could ask even one. She knelt beside them, hands shaking violently as she placed the towels down and held the water bottle close to Nathan. Nathan, why did you come here? She whispered, anguished. He stared at her with the tired eyes of someone who had been fighting battles far beyond the physical. Because you stopped answering my calls, he said. They're threatening to cut my medication again. And I didn't know what else to do. Adaora's breath hitched. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could blink them back. She looked away, ashamed, broken. Michael felt the room tilt slightly. Cut his medication? Threatened? She signed a deal, because of him? A slow dread began bleeding through Michael's understanding. Like pieces of a puzzle sliding into place in the worst possible arrangement. Nathan coughed again, softer this time, and his voice dropped to a whisper. I didn't want her to do it. I begged her not to. But she said if she didn't, they would let me die. Something inside Adaora cracked with an audible sob. Stop, she whispered. Nathan, please stop. Michael felt the air leave his lungs. They threatened. Let him die. And suddenly, the wine at the party, the veiled smiles, the strange contract that made no sense, Adaora's shaking hands, the midnight call she panicked over. It all formed a single horrifying truth. Adaora hadn't been afraid of being caught. She had been afraid of being punished. Not for cheating. For defying someone dangerous. Michael's voice dropped to a low, steady murmur. Adaora. Tell me who they are. She clasped both hands over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Her shoulders shook. Her breath came in small, painful gasps. Because naming them out loud would make everything real. Adaora didn't speak. Not at first. Her entire body trembled as though the name Michael asked for was a curse. One she feared would summon something monstrous if spoken aloud. Michael moved closer, his voice steady, calm, anchoring. Adaora, who are they? She squeezed her eyes shut, breath shaking hard enough to choke her. For a moment Michael thought she might collapse. But then, slowly, her lips parted. They're the Foundation, she whispered. The same people who paid for Nathan's treatment. The same people who threatened to take it away. Michael blinked. What foundation? Nathan answered before she could. Solace Foundation. The name hit the room like a dropped stone, quiet but heavy. Too heavy. Michael frowned. He had heard that name before, somewhere faint, buried. A roadside billboard, a quiet charity gala. Something about community health outreach. Harmless. Forgettable. But the way both Adaora and Nathan said it, their voices tinged with fear, told a different story. Michael lowered himself into the chair across from them, every muscle tense. What does a foundation have to do with you refusing intimacy? He asked quietly. With a baby? With all of this? Adaora covered her face again, but Nathan, exhausted and spiraling, stepped into the silence. They aren't really a foundation, he rasped. They're a private organization. They pay for treatments, surgeries, medication, but it's never free. Michael's eyes sharpened. What do they want in return? Nathan hesitated. Then he said the sentence that made the entire room go cold. They want leverage. Over families. Over people who owe them. Michael felt his blood pressure spike. Leverage for what? Nathan's voice weakened further. Anything. Votes, property transfers, business signatures, favors. They plant themselves into households. Quietly. Patiently. Until they own every decision the family makes. Michael stared at Adaora in disbelief. You got involved with them? No, she whispered quickly. Michael, I didn't choose them. It started years ago. Before you. Before us. Before she died. Michael froze. Who is she? Adaora swallowed. Her eyes brimmed with tears. My sister. Michael's stomach dropped. He had heard bits about her sister, a few vague references, nothing more. He assumed it was just painful to talk about. But Adaora took a shaky breath and continued. She was sick. Very sick. We didn't have money. Solace helped us. Or at least that's what we thought. They paid for everything, until the day she died anyway. And after that, they turned to Nathan. Nathan nodded weakly. I was next. And when you married me, Adeora whispered, voice cracking, they told me they needed something from you. Something only you could give. Michael felt the bottom of his world tilt. Something like what? Adeora finally met his eyes. A signature. Michael's pulse slammed hard. A signature on what, Adeora? She wiped her tears with trembling hands. A land release contract, she whispered. Your father's ancestral land. Solace has been trying to acquire it for years, and you're the last remaining heir. Michael felt sick. Cold. Hollow. And the baby? He asked hoarsely. Why did you suddenly want a baby? Adeora's face twisted in anguish. Because Solace said if I didn't give them what they wanted, they would terminate Nathan's treatment immediately. They told me having a baby with you would give them more options, more pressure points, to use against you if you resisted. Michael's entire body stiffened. So the baby was never about us. Adeora broke. Completely. It was about us, she sobbed. I swear. I wanted a baby with you. But not like that, not under their control. Nathan slumped back, consciousness slipping. Michael looked at him, then at Adeora, then at the terrible truth binding them all. Solace Foundation wasn't a charity. It was a trap. A quiet, calculated system of ownership. And his wife, the woman he loved, had been caught in it long before he ever entered her life. Michael stood completely still. Not frozen, trapped. As if the truth was a net tightened around his ribs, constricting everything that made sense about his world. His wife. His family history. His father's land. Everything he thought had been coincidence suddenly had connections. Threads. Shadows. He inhaled slowly and the air felt sharp. Adeora, he said, voice low, steady in a frightening way, when did they tell you they wanted my father's land? She wiped her cheeks with the back of her trembling hand. Months after we got married. Months, Michael repeated. So before the intimacy stopped. She nodded, shame sinking her shoulders. And the calls you hid from me? The late-night messages? The panic attacks in the bathroom? Her breath caught. Michael, I didn't know how to tell you. They said if I even hinted anything to you, Nathan's treatment would stop that same day. They showed me proof. Photos of the hospital. His file. The exact drugs keeping him alive. Michael's jaw clenched so tightly he felt something crack in his molars. He understood now why Adeora had been pulling away, not out of lack of love but out of fear. Fear that even an affectionate moment between them might make her slip, confess, break. Still, the hurt was there, raw, unfiltered. Why didn't you trust me? He whispered. Adeora broke again. Because they said they were watching, she said. Listening. Monitoring our movements. Michael, I didn't want them to come after you. Or your family. Or the land. They told me what happened to people who disobeyed. I saw what they did to my sister's doctor, the one who tried to expose them. He vanished. Michael blinked. Vanished. Gone? Nathan croaked from the couch. No job. No forwarding address. His family said he never came home. Michael felt heat rise in his chest. Why didn't anyone report them? Nathan let out a bitter, broken laugh. Report? Who? They don't exist on paper. The foundation is just a shell. Their real operations are private. Hidden. Everything looks legal, donations from faceless companies, random investors, private health contracts. But underneath? They own people. Michael remembered now, the gala poster he once saw. Solace Foundation, building health. Building hope. Hope. What a lie. And you think pushing my wife to have a baby was part of that ownership? He asked quietly. Nathan nodded. A child ties you. Anchors you. Makes you reluctant to challenge them. Gives them more ways to pressure you if you resist. Michael's hands curled into fists. Adeora reached for him but stopped halfway, afraid he might pull away. Slowly, painfully, she finished her confession. I didn't ask for intimacy because Solace told me not to. They didn't want me to get pregnant before they were ready. Then suddenly one day they said now was the time. That they needed the child as leverage. Michael exhaled a shaking breath through his nose, not anger at her but at something far beyond them. Why didn't you tell me sooner? He asked again, softer now. She choked out the truth. Because I didn't want you to hate me. Michael's face softened for a fleeting moment, but before he could respond, there was a sudden violent knock at the door. A deep, heavy thud. What? Twice. A third time, louder, shaking the frame. Adeora's entire body snapped rigid. Her eyes widened in terror. Nathan tried to sit up, panting. They found me? Michael turned toward the door, blood turning cold. The knocking stopped. A voice followed, calm, polite, too calm to be safe. "Mr. Michael," the voice called. "We need to speak with your wife. It's urgent." Adaora grabbed Michael's arm, nails digging into his skin. "Don't open that door." The knock came again, softer this time but somehow even more menacing. Michael stood rooted to the floor, every muscle wound tight. Adaora clung to his arm, silently begging. Nathan tried to rise but his body failed him. He slumped back onto the couch with a groan. Then, another knock. This one light. Gentle. "Mr. Michael," the voice outside repeated. "We really must speak with your wife." Michael moved toward the door despite Adaora's frantic shake of her head. He didn't open it, just placed his palm flat against the wood. "Who are you?" he demanded. Silence. Then, with unsettling calm. "We're with the Solace Foundation. We believe your wife has something that belongs to us." Adaora's knees buckled. She dropped into a crouch, both hands pressed against her mouth. Michael's jaw locked. "She owes you nothing. Leave." A soft chuckle. "We don't operate on owing. We operate on agreements." Michael's pulse thundered. "She didn't agree to anything." "On the contrary," the voice replied. "Your wife has been under our care for years. That means she has obligations. Medical, financial, humanitarian, whatever form we decide they take." Michael felt his blood boil. "You're threatening her life. That's not care." "Threatening?" the voice repeated with mild amusement. No. We simply enforce what people freely sign. Your wife has never been coerced." Adaora whispered through tears. "Michael, they make you sign when you're desperate. When a loved one is dying. They don't let you read anything." As if they heard her, the man outside continued. "We only ask for what we are owed. And right now, we are owed her cooperation." Michael felt something inside him snap. He turned the lock and cracked the door, just enough to see them. Two impeccably dressed men in charcoal suits. Cling. Smiling. No weapons visible, but something far more dangerous. Confidence. The type of confidence born from control. The one in front, a tall man with silver touches at his temples, smiled warmly. "Mr. Michael," he greeted. "May we come in?" "No." The man nodded politely as if expecting that. "Is your wife well?" "Her cooperation has been inconsistent. That concerns us." Michael stepped out more fully, blocking their view of the living room. "She's not speaking to you." "Ah," the man said softly. "So she's refusing." Again. The second man checked his watch. "We don't have long. We need her signature tonight." Michael stiffened. "Signature for what?" The silver-haired man smiled, gently, almost pitying. "For the land release, of course. It's overdue." Michael's mind raced. "She can't sign anything. She's not in the right state." "Then you can sign on her behalf," the man offered pleasantly. "As her husband. It's legal. Easier even." Michael stared, stunned. "And if I refuse?" The smile never left the man's face. "Well, I suppose Nathan's treatment will end within the hour. And your wife's sister's file will be reopened, officially marked as non-cooperative. Her case can be reassessed." Adaora let out a strangled cry. Michael's fists clenched. "You're monsters." The silver-haired man tilted his head. "No. We are facilitators. We help people make the decisions they are too emotional to make." Then his eyes slid past Michael, just enough to glimpse Nathan inside. "Ah," he murmured. "There he is. Weak. Fragile. Running out of time." Michael stepped forward, blocking the view. "You're not getting inside." The man exhaled softly. "Mr. Michael, this is your final warning." He reached into his coat, not for a weapon, but for a sleek black folder. Inside it was a document with Michael's full name printed at the top. Prepared in advance. Waiting. The silver-haired man offered it with a polite bow. "Sign and this all goes away." Michael stared at the folder. At the hand holding it. At the two men waiting like wolves disguised as bankers. Then he slowly closed the door in their faces. The men did not protest. They simply said, "We'll return. And next time we won't knock." The moment Michael shut the door, the silence inside the house felt like a living thing, thick, watching, suffocating. Adaora collapsed to the floor, sobbing into her palms. Nathan wheezed shallowly on the couch, clutching his abdomen. Michael stood frozen, his back pressed against the door as if his weight alone could keep the world outside from entering. But the world had already entered. Michael drew a shaky breath. "Adaora, they can't just take our lives apart. We're going to fight them." She lifted her face, wet with tears, eyes red and defeated. You don't understand, she whispered. They don't lose. Michael crouched beside her, taking her trembling hands in his. Someone has to stand up to them. Nathan let out a humorless cough. People have tried. Reporters. Doctors. Families. Solace makes them disappear. Quietly. Their fingerprints are everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Michael squeezed Adora's hands. But they want something from me, he said slowly. That means I still have leverage. Adora shook her head. Michael, once you're valuable to them, that's when you're in the most danger. A loud thud cracked from upstairs. All three froze. Another thud. Heavy. Deliberate. Coming from inside the house. Adora's breath hitched. Michael. He rose slowly, eyes fixed on the ceiling. Nathan whispered, That's not them, is it? But Michael already knew. He moved toward the stairs, each step cautious. The house was too quiet. Too still. Too expectant. Halfway up, he heard it, the creak of a floorboard in the hallway above. Someone was there. Michael's pulse thundered as he reached the landing. The hallway was dark, except for a small lamp left on in the guest room. A shadow moved inside. Michael tensed, ready for confrontation, ready for anything, except what he saw when he stepped inside. A man sat calmly on the edge of the guest bed. Not the ones from the door. Not a stranger. Michael's breath stopped. It was his father. Alive. Except he wasn't supposed to be. Michael had buried him 3 years ago. The man smiled, gentle, familiar, and impossibly wrong. Hello, son. Michael stumbled back. Dad? What? How? His father stood slowly as if he had all the time in the world. There's a great deal you were never told, he said quietly. About me. About our family. About the land. Michael's throat tightened. But you're dead. The man chuckled softly. No. Solace needed me, removed from public view. So I played along. A new identity. A quiet life. They take care of their own. Michael's stomach twisted. Their own? You worked with them? His father's eyes darkened. No, son. I built them. Michael felt the floor tilt under him. His father stepped closer. Solace began as a protection network. A way to safeguard land, influence, legacy. But over time its methods changed. The people changed. I lost control of it. And when I tried to pull out, they staged my death. Michael shook his head violently. No. No, this isn't real. It is, his father said. And the land thereafter? It's not just property. It's the last piece in a network of holdings that would give them full autonomy, political, legal, financial. Michael backed away until his spine hit the wall. What do they want with me? His father sighed, a sound carrying years of regret. They want you to replace me. Michael's breath stopped cold. Downstairs, Adora screamed his name. Michael turned, too late. 2 more men in suits now stood at the bottom of the stairs, silent as shadows, Adora held between them. Nathan weakly shouted in protest before being shoved back down. Michael lunged, but his father raised a hand. Stop. They won't hurt them, unless you refuse. The silver-haired man from earlier stepped into view. Mr. Michael, he said with a satisfied smile. Your father is right. You have a legacy to accept. Michael looked between the men. His wife. Nathan. His father. And the truth snapped into place like a cruel puzzle. Solace didn't just want him. They had been grooming him. For years. His father stepped forward, placing a heavy, final hand on his shoulder. Son, please. Choose wisely. Michael stood frozen, a man on the edge of destiny, betrayal, and inherited darkness. And in that moment he realized, the shock wasn't just that Solace existed. The shock was that it had always been his birthright.